Hello and welcome to Reflections, Episode 7. This is the companion episode to The Meridian, Part 1. Still with us? Let's begin. This is our time in Meridian State Park. I have to move this really close because you're quiet.
Okay.
What do you think of Meridian, though? So we've been to how many
You
now?
just ask me a question and then you're gonna.
What do you think of Meridian now?
Meridian? So, our campsite.
So, I think what I'm trying to do here is I'm really wanting to recap, because if you remember, we had thought that we didn't do this again in Inks Lake.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't remember us sitting down and talking until I got to this episode, and I was like, oh,
yeah,
we actually did again, because the reason why you didn't want to talk at Inks Lake was because we didn't have any experience under our belt. And so I guess at this point I was thinking we did have enough. We've been to a few state parks now. And so I was excited to start talking about it, but you're like, wait, we're here and you have something to say.
Yeah. Well, my little sassy attitude comes out in full form there. But yeah, basically, like, you asked me a question and then you were like answering it, so I got a little snippy. But then I just kind of like actually started explaining. At least I didn't sit in that for too long.
You have the same hair.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I like the braids. It's my thing. Like your hat is your thing.
Yeah. And then we talk about one of the best trails that we've been on so far.
Our campsite that we happened to get is huge, so that's really nice, and it's pretty private. We're right next to a trail, and the hiking trail that we went on yesterday was pretty good. It's the best one that we've seen so far at the state parks. As far as like how rigorous it wasn't anything crazy. Like, you're not climbing up the mountains, but there's some canyons and stuff. And some.
How do you know what climbing up mountains is like?
We had hiked up small mountains in Alaska before this. Like, before we started to go there, do that. We did go to Alaska, and yeah, it was not a very. Probably like more of a tall hill than a mountain.
Well, we saw mountains.
Yeah, but I knew what the vibe was. And so, yeah, I do remember really, really liking the hiking at Meridian. Like, it kind of gave me like some extra energy to like keep going with this. Yeah.
Yeah, because in our last episode at Whitney, we were talking about how the struggle was real.
Losing some momentum.
Yeah, because we're doing this every weekend, and I mean, you had booked everything.
Yeah.
And it was difficult to keep up with our own momentum that we set for ourselves, I think, and this kind of gave us a little extra energy, because in Texas there isn't very many mountains.
Yeah.
And so it is, I guess, is it like more of a stimulation thing for us?
Yeah, like I even now, like, I obviously didn't really know this about myself at this point because we hadn't done a lot of hiking, but I guess this was like me starting to realize like the type of hiking I really like, which I like hiking that isn't just like a dedicated straight trail. I like to have like really like cool views, and I like to like do it for it to be a little bit challenging, and like to maybe like climb some stuff, and yeah, like, I don't know, that's the type of hiking I like. And this was like me kind of realizing that, because we had finally had like a kind of different variety of trail than what we'd seen. There's some canyons and stuff, and some climbing you have to do, which was fun with the dogs. but I really liked hiking like that. So I enjoyed it.
There's another tree.
Yeah. This is actually like the first one that I remembered on my own, like without having seen like the footage to remind me of it. So like the tree that I sat in Inks Lake, I didn't remember doing that. And then the tree that I like climbed at Lake Whitney, I didn't remember doing that at all. And so, but I do remember this tree and climbing this tree. And it is kind of interesting because, yeah, it is like the one that I climbed in Lake Whitney was like barely like 3 feet off the ground, maybe. And then this one is like significantly higher. And I climbed like all the way over it, but it's like, it was me starting to like get comfortable with like trying, some things that I wouldn't have tried before. Getting a little more adventurous and courageous, I guess.
And just, of course, not to get too deep, but in order to overcome something like within yourself, do you think overcoming something physically helps?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, we talk about how stressed out we were at this point in our lives.
Right. So it feels good to be able to just like climb a tree and be successful at that. Yeah.
Well, we we've seemed to run out of excuses to be able to do that or want to do it. It's like, why would I climb a tree? I don't have the time or the tree.
Why would I take that risk? You know, well, O'Malley thought I was going to die.
O'Malley was very worried. And Danny was like, good job.
Yeah.
Afterwards. But I don't know. I'm seeing a theme.
I know. Yeah. You brought that up even like when you're editing Inks Lake and kind of bringing up a theme about like me and trees and climbing and stuff, and I'm like, oh, I guess it is kind of unfolding. Yeah.
Everybody knows what a tree is, but not everybody knows like interacts with them. You know what I'm saying?
And maybe it's not that big of a deal to climb a tree. I don't know.
Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe none of this is a big deal at all. We'll see.
And we didn't even like get anywhere near the end of it because it loops all the way around the lake.
There were some vultures in the distance there for a second. I don't know, we don't really mention it in this video, but at Meridian there's like 1 million vultures. At the time that we went, there were so many. Like,
it was kind of creepy.
It was just like, where they hung out.
Yeah.
But
I remember before we got to that tree even, like I was getting kind of creeped out by them because they were like, almost seemed like to be following us. I remember one being like on the trail and like it was like in front of us and we were trying to pass it, and like, you know, you think you're coming up on a bird, like normally they would take off, and it would just like, it just stood like it was there until like we were kind of a little close for my comfort before it would like go, and like we had the dogs with us and everything, so yeah, the vultures were kind of intense there.
I show that vulture later on the trail in this video, but also I like this part right here. it's just one of those things that I notice, like, intentionally put it in there that the music picks up as the movement of everything starts to pick up too.
Yeah.
I have to point it out because I guess
That makes it flow.
I guess I want people
nicely.
to notice.
Yeah. I also remember like this like rocky area. Like I remember when we got up there, because we thought about doing like the whole trail, but then kind of once we got started and realizing that it went around the whole lake, we were like, okay, that's probably not realistic for this evening.
Well, the dogs.
And late afternoon, and it was late September, so it is still pretty like warm in Texas usually. But I remember stopping at this like rocky outcropping and just like we sat there for a while and just like watched the lake and like nature and just kind of chilled there and relaxed, and that was a nice time. I do remember that.
You're chilling here a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful. Like a nice, beautiful morning.
It is very pretty. It's also very windy. We'll talk about it here in a second, but throughout all of I think what the factor in that prevented me from editing this right away, among many other things, was just as I look back, the audio was very difficult to work with. Had I left it alone, you would not have been able to hear us nearly as well as you hear us now. But as my skills and knowledge grew, I was able to kind of come back to this, and it was still a struggle.
Right.
But
because it was very windy and I'm like pretty soft spoken, and this was like our second time to even record something like this where we're like sitting down and talking, and so I was really very quiet and unsure. And I was not going to repeat myself.
Nor were you going to allow us to invest in audio stuff at this point either. So it was whatever I had to use.
Yes, that's
and
very true.
So that's also part of the limitations, was I had to grow within the confines of what I had at the time.
Right, that's true.
So... So while we're here, let's recap all the parks as best as we can. First one, Bastrop.
Oh, I think we should also say...
And then I try to recap again, and you can see my face here. I left that in because I was like, can we talk about it now? We can talk. Let's reflect on this experience, because I was trying to keep the journal entry log or whatever in the video too.
Right.
Because I'm a little bit of a hoarder when it comes to memories, I guess, and experiences.
Yeah, but we both like our brains both work pretty quickly, so yeah, sometimes we're like interrupting each other, probably me especially. Yeah, and like at this point too, I think we both didn't really know what we were doing, and then we both had ideas on what we should be doing, and so it's a little messy.
And we walk all over each other.
Yeah.
And then we have both of the dogs here staring at us, and the whole time.
I should also say it was a little spooky last night. Like sleeping was a little tricky here because you have these like big huge trees, and they have those cool leaves that like make a lot of noise in the wind, which is like relaxing during the day when you're like feeling the nature vibe. Not so relaxing at night when the wind picks up and it sounds like it's about to rain entire night.
That's the actual audio of the trees. I'm kind of proud of myself for capturing that, because that was really loud all night.
Yeah, I remember, well, because we literally didn't have a rainfly. And so up until this point, we'd like gotten away with not needing a rainfly. And so I think I was also worried that that eventually was going to come to a head and like bite us, you know. And so with the trees like making all that noise, I kept thinking that it was about to like storm. 'Cause with like when it's dark outside and you can't really see what's going on, you know, it sounded like a storm. But then, yeah, it's interesting because it's like I'm also not very used to being in nature at this point. And so it's like the tree, like it's so loud. And yeah, like this was probably the park where we were most kind of like away. Like our campsite was really just like felt away from everything, like from other parts of the park, from like even amenities in the park, and then it's like even the location of it is pretty like off, you know. And so we felt probably pretty isolated and with nature,
and that's scary when you have a lot of anxiety, because I think that's also what nature can bring out at night, especially when you have no separation from it. You're looking around and
vultures are circling
vultures
you.
everywhere. Yeah. So then this is what happens.
It was hard to sleep.
There's a lot of noises, but that's just nature. Tent camping in nature with no walls, and you hear every little footstep.
That's the vulture we saw on the trail, and then this is how many we saw at one point.
Our site is primitive, so no water or electricity, which hasn't really been a big issue. It's our first time doing primitive. I wasn't sure what to expect, but we just brought a bunch of water, so we've had plenty of water for the dogs and brush our teeth and stuff. The bathroom's like super far. Not the type of primitive camping where you like can go off in the woods to go to the bathroom, because you do have neighbors.
It's like a high.
There was like a spot somewhat close to us.
Yeah,
but
like
they were changing out often, so there
and
was
the trees were sparse enough where it's not like you could really like go off behind a tree. Then like in the little kind of like grassy wooded area we were surrounded by like lily pads, but like the lake, and so you don't want to wander off too far into that, especially in the dark, when it was dark, because then you could wind up in the lake, and so you can just like go at your campsite, but then also the bathrooms were far enough where we had to like drive to them, so that was a little rough, because it's like anytime you needed to go to the bathroom you had to like pack the dogs up and drive to the bathroom. So that was it. I really did like this campsite because of how like away it was, so beautiful, and like how away it felt, but then like it was kind of inconvenient in some ways, like namely the bathroom. And it was our first time without water or electricity, so that was like another kind of new thing. Like that was our first time camping like that. It's now that we've done it a lot of times since then, it's like that's really not a big deal, but at the time it's like, oh my gosh, we're not gonna have that.
It's you can't really show that side of it, the mental strain of just the anxiety of
doing something new.
That's what I'm trying to do with all the noises and sounds. I guess with this one's including them, but it is sort of like when you climb a tree for the first time in a while, you're like, oh, I forgot I could do that. Just like, you know, a bathroom not being around all the time. It's not the end of the world.
Right.
It's just inconvenience
Yes.
And I think that's a part of building like resilience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And despite all of that and all that anxiety, like it's so freaking beautiful.
Yeah.
That's the point of
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So at what cost?
It's worth it.
At what cost?
Yeah.
It's like we get to see you're up next to a lake. You don't get that really anywhere. You can't anywhere else except for at Meridian, you know.
This
specific one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I mean though, is to experience this you have to actually be there for it.
It's like a hybrid primitive where you can park your car right next to where you're camping, but also the bathrooms are far.
Yes.
So when you think of primitive,
Bit of both. You have to like hike to your site.
to your spot, yeah.
Which was not the case.
Poop in the woods. We haven't done that yet.
Yes, I was thinking about.
Yeah, and you were like, wait, we've just had our coffee. Oh no.
Well, yeah, it was just
That's
like
funny.
maybe one day we'll have to do that. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we have different perceptions of what camping is like, though. I think is what we were saying because we haven't done it.
Right. And
that
now I'm
much.
like, primitive camping doesn't necessarily mean that you have to hike into your spot, but
No.
that like at that point in time I didn't really like know.
Yeah.
Like I was like, we might have to. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
And I just include this little shot of Danny because it's fun and cute. This was actually one of our trips to the bathroom. So.
Yet. So far, we've been to how many state parks? 4? This is our 5th one.
Yes. Yeah.
First one was Bastrop.
Well, yeah.
We had a day pass at Bastrop. Then we stayed overnight at Inks Lake. Then we went back to Bastrop and stayed overnight there. Next one was Lake Somerville, which was
a gem.
And then Lake Whitney, we went with a couple friends, and that was really fun.
Yes.
And now we're here at Meridian with the dogs yet again.
I finally got my little recap.
Yeah.
I just really.
I literally just did it, but I almost like interrupted you when we started the recap because I was like, wait, Bastrop wasn't first, but it was.
Mm-hmm.
It was.
We count it. It's the first episode of Perspectives.
Yeah.
And then, you know, since I'm like, and now we're here, and you finally get to sit in your hammock because we're done with the video of sitting down, and then.
But also, sorry.
Some things never change.
Also, like we've talked about this, it's kind of interesting because this was like our first time to do like a little reflecting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like we're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
We're reflecting on our reflections.
Yeah.
And everything just stacks on top of each other. Every experience, you just keep going, and it's good to remember them because I would have forgotten about what O'Malley does
Yet
here.
again.
Their personalities are so different, but
Yeah.
he was playing some kind of game there.
That's really sweet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like he was like pushing me, like swinging me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did that a bunch.
Yeah.
And that's the end of part 1. The reason it's part 1 is because there's a part 2 coming up next, and I felt the need to separate the two in this one because the last time we did a 2-parter was the last time we kind of did sit down at Inks Lake and stuff, you know, because this would be, I try to keep them under about around 10 minutes, and this would be closer to 20 if I would have done it.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them in one. So
plus in the next one, like we actually do reflect. on like, so I'm interested to see what that turns out to be, because it'll actually be us like talking about each place that we've been, but like 4 years ago. So that's like really weird, because I didn't even realize that we did this.
And also something to take note on is that I include new footage from the places we've been to. I try to as best as I can, because I don't even use all the footage from the places we go to, because it has to stay under this time constraint. But then I'm like, well, we're going to revisit them. We're going to reference them in videos or talk about them at some point. And so I've been in each perspective using footage from previous things, and you'll notice that there's new experiences that I haven't shown. I have one example at least in the part 2, but
Yeah.
I'll see if there's more, because I haven't edited that one yet. So as of the recording of this video, it's but thanks for sticking around. Memories are kind of fun to talk about. I think
honestly,
I have a habit of doing it. But then what is this is like we talk about this like a fancy journal entry.
Yeah, like a fancy diary.
And it's good to see. It's weird to see your own self from a long time. I mean, 4 years is quite some time. That's a whole college, university graduation.
Degree.
Yeah. So like you can change a lot, even at any point in your life, you can change. And seeing this kind of segment of our lives is incredible to me.
It's crazy to see how much we've changed, and then also those parts of us that like maybe were kind of quiet before this, or like suppressed before this, or whatever, like, but parts that like are so obviously a part of you, like so deep down, that like start to come out too.
Like, what are you climbing trees for unprovoked?
Right. Yeah.
Like, I didn't ask you to climb a tree. You're just like, I'm gonna do that, and like sure. O'Malley's not gonna like it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a tricky part. Is like, you can't ask me to do anything that I don't want to do, because I won't do it. So.
I had to wait 4 years to actually have a controlled audio environment to sit down and reflect and talk about this, because obviously I've been wanting to do this.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to do this
the whole time.
But
I really didn't like doing it in our campsite. I do prefer doing it in our house.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there you have it. Here we are. So I'm excited to get to part 2, and then we'll probably reference things from this episode in part 2 as well, possibly. But that's all I have to say about this one.
The end.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We will see you next time. Go there, do that.